that afternoon he telephoned from New York, and he said, I cannot go home tomorrow. I have to stay for 1 or 2 more days. Actually, apparently he was trying to stay in New York as long as possible. There's no joy to go home. But she responded with the language of love. She said that, well, it's okay if you need to stay, and then please stay. I can wait. And her way of talking is completely different, because the seeds of happiness and love in her had been watered. And he hung up. But a few hours later, suddenly he remembered that she was talking with a kind of language that he had not heard during many years. He noticed a change in her way of talking. And that watered the seed of happiness in him. Because in the last many years, she has never talked to him in that way, always with a lot of bitterness, sourness, blaming. So he arranged to go home as quickly as possible to offer a pleasant surprise to her. The next day when he arrived, he went up to his place and he saw the letter. He stayed there for a very long time. He was reading that letter. All the seeds of happiness and love that had been buried deeply in him was watered. He stayed so many hours up there. And when he came down, he was completely transformed. And they reconciled very quickly. So this story proved that the practice of watering the seeds of happiness, the positive seed in each other, is possible, very effective, and can change your life overnight. If you look into yourself, you recognize the seeds of happiness, love, forgiveness, understanding. Joy. And if you look into the other person, you also see many positive seeds. And if you know how to water these seeds, you will transform that person, make him or her happy. You know that in the past you have watered the negative seeds in him or her, and that person was unhappy, and because she is unhappy, you cannot be a happy person. More than a decade ago, in the Upper Hamlet of Plum Village, there was one American practitioner who tried to write his mother a letter of love. The exercise given by Thai to the practitioners of the Upper Hamlet that day is to write a letter of love to your father and your mother. And in the letter, you try to find out, to identify the good seeds, the positive things about your father and your mother. You do walking meditation, you do sitting meditation, you look deeply into the person of your father, you look deeply into the person of your mother, and you recognize the good seeds in him or in her. And that American practitioner, he told himself, writing a love letter to his father, that's easy. He can see many good seeds of his father. He can see the virtues of his father in him. But for his mother, he believed that he may not be able to write a love letter to her because he had difficulty with his mother. But because it was an exercise, homework, as a practitioner, he had to sit down and do it. It came as a surprise. When you had when you had some difficulty with someone, the suffering you have tends to prevent you to see the whole picture. You allow one thing to cover up all the other things. But when you practice walking and sitting and looking deeply, you will discover. And while writing that letter to his mother, this American practitioner discovered so many positive things about his mother. And he recognized many good things in him have been transmitted to him by his mother. So during the time he wrote the letter, he rediscovered a wonderful mother. And his letter was really a letter of love. And he was very happy to post the letter to America. A few days later, his wife telephoned from America. She said, "Mother has read your letter." She was so happy. She said that she had rediscovered her lovely son. And she said that she was sorry that her own mother has already passed away. If not, she would have written a letter like that to her own mother. So that letter written by the practitioner in the upper hamlet has watered the seed of love, not only in him, but watered the seed of love in his mother. And his mother rediscover the lovely son she used to have. When you practice, many people around you benefit from your practice. And the practitioner, the American practitioner in the upper hamlet, she responded back like this: according to the teaching and the practice in Plum Village, I have my mother alive in every cell of my body. I have my father alive in every cell of my body. So please tell her that her mother is not really dead. Her mother is still alive in every cell of her body. So she should go on and write that letter to her mother. And then his wife told his mother about that. And her mother sat down and wrote that letter to her own mother. And that is the practice of watering the good seeds. And learning from this school of manifestation only, consciousness only, we can apply many things into our daily life and change our life and change the life of the people we love. That day was a Vesak day in Plum Village. There was a couple who came from New York, from Bordeaux. And while I was giving a Dhamma talk on selective watering, I saw a lady crying all the time during the whole time of listening to the Dhamma talk. After the Dhamma talk, I went to him, her husband, and said that your flower needs some watering. So after the silent lunch, they drove home, and during that time he drove home, which lasted 1 hour and 15 minutes, he practiced watering his flower. And when they got home, the children were very surprised because her mother was blooming like a flower, very joyful. In fact, the gentleman knew how to water the flower, but he needs someone to remind him to do so. To water a flower is not difficult at all. You know the talents, the virtues, the goodness of the other person. You need to recognize these virtues, these positive things, and express your gratitude for these positive virtues in him or in her. And then you can transform her after half an hour or 1 hour. So this practice of selective watering is very effective. It can change very quickly yourself. It can change very quickly the other person. We live in a family. Maybe we have a hectic life. We don't have time for each other. We have to get the time to look at each other, to tell each other the things that can water the seeds of joy, happiness, hope in the other person. Mother, I'm so happy that you are still alive with me. My daughter, I know that you are there, still there with me, and I enjoy every minute your presence. They are very simple things to say, and they express the truth that we are mindful of the conditions of happiness we still have. We cherish, we treasure the conditions of happiness that are still available. Someone said that happiness is something that you don't recognize when it is there, but when you lose it, and then you know that you just lost it. So go home to the present moment and recognize the many conditions of happiness you have, and suddenly you are happy right away. These conditions of happiness are more than enough for us to be happy in the here and the now. And the practice of mindfulness is very crucial. Perhaps you have heard of the practice of the 5 mantras. The first mantra is, darling, I know you are there, alive, and I'm so happy. The son should be able to tell his father or his mother such a thing. A lover should be able to tell the other person such a thing. In fact, we are grateful that the other person is there. Imagine she's not there, he's not there. We will suffer. So mindfulness makes it possible that we recognize the presence of the other and cherish that presence. So go to the other person, look into her eyes and say, darling, I know you are there. I am so happy. This is the first mantra. And you don't have to practice it in Sanskrit or Tibetan. You can practice in your own language. And you see that a transformation will take place right away. And that is the practice of mindfulness. I know a young man who suffered because his father is not available to him. His father was very rich, but he did not have time for his family. So that day the father told the son, darling, maybe tomorrow is your birthday. What do you want? I will buy it for you. The young man did not know what to say. His father is very rich and he could afford to buy anything. But he did not need anything. He needed one thing, only one thing, but that was difficult. That is the presence of my father. His father was so busy that he had the feeling that he did not have a father at all. His father was completely absorbed in his business. He did not have the time for his wife and children. But after some while, the young man said, Daddy, what I want is you, and not something you buy. And if that father knows the teaching and the practice of mindfulness, he will practice mindful breathing, making a few mindful steps, and then he goes close to the young man, look into his eyes, and pronounce the second mantra. Darling, I am really here for you. I am here for you. And that should be the truth, because your mind, your body should be truly present in the here and the now in order for you to become a gift for your beloved one. To love is to be there for your beloved one. If you are not there, how can you love? That is why to love means to be there. And the most precious gift you can make to your beloved one is your presence. Right? The most precious gift you can make to your beloved is your presence, your true presence. And that true presence is easy to make. Take a deep breath. Go home to yourself. Take a few steps. Go home to yourself and be present 1% in the here and the now. And suddenly you have something to offer to your beloved one. Darling, I'm really here for you 100%. That is the greatest gift. If you are a lover, remember that. And this also a mantra. And that in order to pronounce that mantra, you should have mindfulness and concentration. Otherwise, it's not a mantra. A mantra, it has a power to transform. A mantra is a formula pronounced with a lot of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Otherwise, it's not a mantra. And every one of us can practice these mantras every day, several times. Darling, I'm here for you. Even when you use your portable phone, you can practice the mantra. Even when with a computer, you can practice the mantra. Darling, I'm always there for you. Darling, I know you are there. I'm very happy. You embrace your beloved one with the energy of mindfulness. To love means to be recognized as existing. Suppose you drive your car and you think of many things, and she's sitting just close to you, but she's not in your attention. Your attention is focused on many, many things except her. She's not happy because she is not in the realm of your attention. She will wither like a flower without water. So to love someone is to recognize him or her as existing. And that mantra is just for that. Darling, I know you are there. And I'm very happy. It means using the energy of mindfulness, you embrace your beloved one. Darling, I know you are there, and I'm very happy. The third mantra is when your beloved one suffers. Because you are mindful, that is why you know, you are aware that something does not go well with your beloved one. And that is the moment when you have to recite the third mantra. Darling, I know you suffer. That is why I am here for you. When you suffer and your beloved one ignore that you suffer, you suffer more. But if your beloved one is aware of your suffering, and then you suffer less. And that is why the third mantra is to bring a relief right away to him or to her. Darling, I know you suffer. That is why I am here for you. Before you can do anything to help, you can already bring a lot of relief by practicing the third mantra. And this is the practice of Buddhism. Very simple and very effective. And right away, you don't need 8 years or 10 years in order to get the result. Darling, I know you suffer. That is why I'm here for you. And the fourth mantra, which is a little bit more difficult to practice, but you need the fourth mantra one day. That is when you suffer and you believe that the person who makes you suffer is him, is her, the person you love the most in the world. You feel despair. If someone else has said that to you, done that to you, you would have suffered less. But in this case, the person who has said such a thing, the person who has done such a thing is the person you love the most in the world. So you suffer so much. You are deeply hurt. You are in despair. And that is when you have to use the fourth mantra. You have to go to him or to her and say this. Darling, I suffer. Please help. Usually, you do not want to do so because you are so hurt that you want to do the opposite. You want to show that without him or her, you can survive very well. You prefer to go into your room, lock your room and cry alone. And if that person comes to you, trying to comfort you, to try to avoid him or her, leave me alone. Darling, do you suffer? Me suffer? Why do I have to suffer? Because you are hurt. And your intention is to punish him, to punish her for having made you suffer. And in true love, such a kind of amour propre. Tiếng Anh là gì? Pride. That kind of pride should not be there. In the beginning, you have vowed to each other that you will help each other and share with each other happiness and suffering. So that pride should not be there. It is a factor of separation. So you should overcome that obstacle and go to him and go to her and practice the fourth mantra. Darling, I suffer. Please help. It means, I don't understand why you have said such a thing to me. I don't know why you have done such a thing to me. I suffer. Please explain. In Plum Village, we have a formula, a practice that we use when we get angry. Every time you get angry, you practice mindful breathing, mindful walking, recognizing your anger, and get a relief. And then you look deeply into the nature of your anger. And you might discover that because you are so sensitive, the other person did not want to make you unhappy, but because the seed of anger in you is too important, that is why you might have been victim of a wrong perception. So you practice looking deeply in order to liberate yourself from the anger. But if after 24 hours of practice you don't succeed in transforming your anger, and then you have to practice the fourth mantra. You have to go to him or to her to tell him or her that you are angry, that you suffer, and that you need his help or her help. And if you are not calm enough to do so, you might like to use a sheet of paper and you write it down. There are 4 sentences. The first sentence is, "Darling, I suffer, and I want you to know it." You have to tell the truth. You have to be direct. "Darling, I suffer, and I want you to know it." The first sentence. And if you can bring yourself to write down that sentence, you begin to suffer less right away. Please try and see. It means that I don't know, I don't understand why you have done such a thing to me. I don't understand why you have said such a thing to me. Explain. The first sentence, "Darling, I suffer, and I want you to know it." The second sentence, "I am practicing. Because I am a practitioner, I have received instructions from my teacher that when I get angry, I should not say anything or do anything. I should go back to my breathing, my walking, in order to recognize my anger, embrace it tenderly, and look deeply into it. So I am practicing." So the second sentence can inspire respect on the part of your partner. I am practicing. I am not reacting like a non-practitioner. I am taking good care of myself. I am practicing. And that is an indirect invitation for the other person to practice also. And he or she will ask the question, "What have I said? What have I done to make him or her unhappy like that?" So this is also an invitation for the practice. The second sentence, "I am practicing." I am doing my best. I am practicing, or I am doing my best. I think there's only 3 sentences. And the last sentence is, "Please help me. Please help me. I need your help. There's no pride. I need your help. Please explain to me why you have done such a thing to me. Please explain to me why you have said such a thing to me. Please help. I'm sure that after having written down these 3 sentences, you feel better. And you should deliver that message to him or to her before the deadline of 24 hours. That is the practice of plumblage. You should not keep it for you alone more than 24 hours. You have to email him, email her, or send him or her a fax with these 3 sentences. And while waiting, you continue to practice. And if you find out that your anger has been born from your own wrong perception, you have to communicate with the other person right away and apologize. Darling, it's okay now. I have found out that it's my wrong perception. So don't worry. Or if you are the other person, and then you should practice. You know that the other person, your partner, is suffering. And you have to ask the question as what you have done, what you have said to make him or her suffer in that way. And if you find out that you have been unskillful, and then you have to send him, send her a message right away, expressing your regret as soon as possible. Make the other person feel better right away. So you may like to write down these 3 sentences in a piece of paper the size of a credit card. Darling, I suffer. I know. I want you to know it. I am doing my best practicing. Please help. And you put it in your wallet. And every time you suffer, you are angry at him or her, breathe in, breathe out. Take your wallet and take this message out. And you know what to do and what not to do. This is the Buddha in your wallet. The story of Mr. Trương, many of you already know. This is a tragedy taking place in Vietnam many centuries ago. He went to the war, and during that time his wife gave birth to a little boy. And after the war he was from the army, and he went home, Mr. Trương. And she was so happy to learn about that. She went with the little boy to meet him at the gate of the village. And they cry happily in the arms of each other. And according to the Vietnamese tradition, you have to announce the return, the good news to the ancestors. In Vietnam, every house has an ancestral altar. And the practice is every day to light a stick of incense and to offer to the ancestors, to remove the dust on the altar, or to change the water in the flower pot. And the few minutes you do that is the few minutes you connect with your ancestors. It's very important practice to get connected to your ancestors. And you have to announce to your ancestors the most important events that take place in your family. If you give birth to a baby, and then you have to offer an offering, you make an offering on the altar and announce your altar to your ancestors that a baby has been born to the family. Your ancestors have the right to know, to be informed. And if you marry your daughter to the young man in the other village, you also have to inform your ancestors. They have the right to know. So you keep in touch with your ancestors. And this is, I think, is very good practice. You don't get alienated from your ancestors. You always feel rooted in your ancestors. I think you stay healthy because you are deeply rooted in your tradition, in your ancestors. And I hope that this tradition will be alive for a long time. An ancestral altar in the house, and you practice connecting with your ancestors every day. So according to the tradition, the young mother had to go to the market to do some shopping, and to prepare an offering to be placed on the altar of the ancestors. And left alone with the little boy, the young father tried to persuade him to call him daddy, but the little boy refused to do that. No, mister, you are not my daddy. My daddy used to come every night, and my mother talked to him every night. And when every time my mother sit down, he sit down. When my mother lie down, he also lie down. So when the young father heard about that, all his happiness was evaporated and became a block of ice. He did not smile anymore. He suffered so much. When the young mother came home from the marketplace, he did not look at her anymore. He did not answer her question anymore. And the young mother began to suffer also. And she did not understand why. In fact, there is no one intruding into the family. During his absence, one day the little boy came home very dirty. And he said, "Mommy, everyone in the hamlet has a father. Where is my father?" So it's difficult for the lady to explain about the war, military service and so on. So she pointed to her own shadow projected by the kerosene lamp on the wall and said, "This is your father. Greet your father. Hello, father. Good evening, daddy." So the little boy believed that the shadow of his mother is his father. And in fact, she talked to her own shadow every night. My good husband, my dear husband, you have been away for a long time. How could I alone raise our child? And she cried. And of course, when she sit down, the shadow will sit down. And when she lie down, the shadow will lie down. That is baby talk. That is the talk of a child. But he believed that to be the truth. And he was caught by a wrong perception that make him despair. After the offering has been placed on the altar, he lighted the 3 sticks of incense and offering his prayers, announced his return. And then because he believed that his wife has committed adultery or something like that, he rolled up the mat and did not allow her to touch the earth before the ancestors. She is not qualified to present herself in front of the ancestors. And instead of sharing a meal of reunion, he left the house and went to the village and spent all the day in a liquor shop in a liquor place, bivette, in a bar, and did not come home until 2 in the morning. And he continued like that for several days. And the young mother could not bear it anymore. She did not understand why that kind of behavior. He did not look at her. He did not answer her questions. And finally she was despair and she jumped into the river and she was drowned. And when the young father learned about the tragedy, he tried to go home and take care of the little boy. And that night when he lighted the kerosene lamp, suddenly the little boy said, "Mister, here is my daddy. He used to come every night like that, and my mother used to talk to him and cry a lot with him." And now the young father began to understand that is only a wrong perception. But it's too late. His wife is already dead. A tragedy took place just because of misunderstanding, wrong perception. If the couple knew the fourth mantra, they could have saved their happiness. The young father could have gone to his wife and said, "Darling, I suffer. Darling, I suffer." The little boy said that during my absence, someone used to come every night. And you cry and you talk to him, and every time you sit down, he sit down. Who is that? Why have you done such a thing to me? Please explain. And then, of course, the young lady would have had a chance to explain, to help him correct his perception. But he did not practice the fourth mantra. And the lady committed the same kind of unskillfulness. If she had gone to him and said, "My dear husband, I suffer. I don't understand why from the time I got back from the market, you did not look at me and you did not answer my question. You did not allow me to touch the earth before ancestors. Have I done something horrible to be treated like that?" And then if she had done so, the young husband would have had a chance to explain.